Well, it's a happy day for me because it's an ESTAT day. Hey, ribbon cable! We're looking at the STAX SR-009S. S stands for gold. This is the pair that sort of came out as the new flagship above the 009 and then eventually replaced the 009 in Stax's lineup now that it's got the new SRX 9000. Don't quote me on that exact set of letters and numbers, which is the new big boy flagship at like $6.5 grand or something. These guys were in parallel production with the 009 for a while, but now the 009 seems to have ceased production. It was a headphone from 2011, so it had a good run. These are from 2018 and are sort of slotted in that spot in between the 007 and the whatever it is, the thing that I don't really know the letters and numbers of. So, construction pretty much identical to the 009. I reviewed that a little while back. I will link to it. I did not go back and watch it, so we'll see how much I contradict myself between my memory of that headphone and this one. But yeah, you know, super light on the head, beautiful machined aluminum bits, leather, nice leather. They're light, they're comfy, they're easy to wear. They are not a hassle. What do you get? What do you get in sound quality? So you get, you know, kind of what you'd expect. I mean, just incredibly crisp and well-defined detail. Just great definition, great resolution, and, you know, just a lot of like really clear edges. Like you really understand the beginning and the end of a thing, and therefore you get a lot of separation between all those things and a lot of space in the music. Awesome acceleration. Just things just jump out of nowhere. You're listening, and then whoa, something just sort of pops out of nowhere, which is very cool, very compelling. They can make other headphones, like other very, very good top of the line headphones, sound honestly a bit soft and muddy by comparison. Like if you let your brain get reprogrammed for these and then you go back to like the best of the best planars, you're like, feels sluggish, feels a little quiet, or a little sort of soft. You know, just incredibly clean sound. The bass is like surprisingly impactful. I think that was a big revelation for me over the 009s with these, is the bass seemed to go deeper. It had more impact. It just was way more satisfying to me. Yeah, it's like, I feel like you can sort of sense the room a bit on these. Like you get extra little reverberations and echoes and sound bouncing off things. It's like there's so much information. You really becomes just very believable on some levels. I'm going through the likes first. Unfortunately, the dislikes list is relatively long as well. What was I saying? Who knows? Oh, so I found these really enjoyable for sort of calmer, quieter music with less things happening at the same time. So like listening to a cello or a harp soloist, just magical, little twangy bits, little textures of strings, great stuff. Like chamber music, like three-piece jazz ensembles, or like percussive stuff, like there's this like French percussionist, Mino Sinalou, I want to say. I'm sure I've murdered it, but he's got some really cool kind of almost North African sounding stuff that's like really bopping around and just kind of gets in your head. I was listening to like a Ron Carter track that really stuck with me. It's just like Ron Carter on the bass, and then so like very sort of quiet percussion, like a lot of like, you know, brushes on the hi-hats, and then like very sort of gentle piano, and that was just like the deep defined bass and the twangy little taps on the high toms and everything. Just so good. So that's the so good category. Let's talk about the so bad category. I don't really like these for like rock or folk music. For me, that's where one of their major issues, their timbre just really starts to show for me. These things emphasize really everything that I love about ESTATs and everything that I hate about them at the same time. Like ESTATs can become a bit weird and thin and sharp and just unnatural. And these do that, and it's track to track. Like some tracks I'm like, oh, these are the best headphones ever. And then some tracks I'm like, oh, these are terrible and they're making me anxious and sad. I was listening to Eric Clapton. I think this is a relatively recent kind of acoustic release. And this very like sparse arrangement of You Rock Me Baby. And the guitar sound was so impressively like twangy and three-dimensional and cool and like hyper real in a way. And then he comes in and starts singing and you're like, whoa, what is this weird like robot man on my track? Yeah, I don't care for like brass, like horns, like especially in the upper octaves. That's like super revealing to me about like timbre, and like they just sound very, very wrong to me and like overly kind of sharp. Yeah, it's like they sort of start to take the music apart, and that's a bummer for me. I don't want to listen to the gear. I want to listen to the music, and I think these, like I said, there's some tracks where you're just like, this is perfect, and then there's some tracks that are just, it's not a good fit for me. The mids can sound kind of dry and a little thin, and sometimes, I mean, they're kind of like aggressive. Aggressive is not the right word. They're just so sharp. They're just such a precision instrument that it can be a little draining and a little fatiguing and a little headache inducing, honestly, for me. So yeah, I mean, if you want something that cuts like a knife, that's coming at you like full bore, all the detail, all the time, all the crispness, all the intensity, like if you dig on that, and that's like, yes, I'm into that, then these are an incredible headphone. It kind of reminds me of like when Bose was doing all its component stuff in like the maybe late 90s, early 2000s, where they did like those little tiny tweeters and then the big giant sub in the corner, and they're like, this is a component system. And you're like, okay, well, the bass sounds good and the treble sounds pretty good, but there's kind of nothing in the middle. And that's not exactly what the sound quality, but it just sort of reminds me of that like overly analytical point of view on sound, where it's like, yeah, you kind of proved that you could do a thing, but at the end of the day, it's sort of lost all its fluidity, and it's kind of, I can't rock out anymore. So was that a good thing? I think if you were like, oh, I want an E-stat that I can live with, that's like sort of closer to a planar and it can be my one and only headphone and do everything, for me, these wouldn't work as that. But I also just don't know if that premise works, because I kind of think that if you just want the one be-all, end-all high-end headphone, I would end up in camp planar, and I love E-stats, but I think you can have a much less expensive E-stat if you want it as another system, to sort of bounce between, something that could be really fun and punchy and celebrate all that great E-statiness with a little less baggage. Anyway, such a disorganized ramble today, but hopefully some of that made sense to somebody. Yeah, more E-stat stuff on the way. So if you're into that, then, subscribe and stuff. Okay, until then, this is Signgraph signing out.